I am joined by Pierre Andresen. Very, very proud to have you on. Excited to have you on. Host the Through the Wire podcast, House of Highlights. You have the house party. You're somebody that I truly admire. Your page is incredible. Your work is incredible. So thank you so much for giving me your time and coming on the show.
No, I appreciate you having me. We definitely both have to give a shout out to our guy Combos Court. He's how I know who you are, and I'm pretty sure it's vice versa. But I appreciate all the compliments. I'm a fan of your work too, especially what you've done in this draft, this unique draft that we just had this past year.
Right.
And that's some of my favorite stuff. I admire all of the draft work people. So because I know how tough it is to cover college basketball, and being to it means you put a lot of time and effort in. So I respect it from afar. But I appreciate you having me, man. I appreciate it.
I appreciate that. And yeah, to your point, a friend of Combos is a friend of mine. And I've seen you on Combos Court a lot, and I've seen your lives with him. And I'm like, man, yeah, I got to get this guy on. I got to get this Pierre guy on. So let's start off with what you do. So you have a lot going on for yourself. You have one of the best pages in the game, a lot of content. So can you kind of break down to my audience what you do, what is House of Highlights, what's your show about, and kind of just give a rundown of that?
Okay. So yeah, I'm to put it simple, I'm just an all-around guy in this generation that has been blessed to have a platform. And my platform allows me to talk about everything that I want, but basketball is my main love. House of Highlights, we're a company that's basically a branch of Bleacher Report and Turner Sports. So TNT is like our main umbrella, and then under it is Bleacher Report and then House of Highlights. So we're just one big family tied in. And through House of Highlights, I have a podcast with my younger cousin, who's a YouTuber. He's a pretty big YouTuber, Kenny, King of the Fourth Quarter. And then two high school friends of his. I'm a bit older than them by a couple years, which in high school feels like a
Yeah.
So I know them, and we connected after high school because obviously Kenny is my first cousin. My dad and his mom are brother and sister. So that just happened naturally, just conversations about basketball turning into, man, we should have a podcast. And we did it, and, we grinded for a while, and there was some sacrifices made. But at the end of it, we were able to connect with House of Highlights and build something that's now turned into something I never thought would have happened. And that's part of why my page is the way it is. We've been able to build a brick by brick, solid, real fan base that is more so of a community. We have like a real family structure with our fan base and our core, who kind of supports everything that we do, and they kind of go crazy for us. So sometimes people think we're bigger than what we are just because that like when you just had the conversation before we even started, like you were saying, you're trying, slowly but surely, but like the slow process to me is the best, because like I see people who have bigger numbers than us, like on following account, or people might be verified, but the impact we have is like 10 times more because we have a legit fan base who's been with us through the whole way, and it's just a different. But that's pretty much it. We're a basketball podcast, strictly basketball. I'm really the only one in our podcast group that does the college basketball stuff. So when people watch us, it's mostly going to be NBA. This past season, I got my guys into college basketball and covering the draft better. And we had a chance to connect with some of the draft prospects because we have a situation with Twitter where we do live Twitter shows. So we had Sadiq Bey. We had Aaron Naismith. We had a few other guys, but this past year they were able to get into the draft process as well.
Well, those two guys you just mentioned have toaster ovens. They can burn the net. Like those are both elite shooters. So those are two good names. All right, Pierre. So first of all, before we dive into everything, because there's so much I can pick away from there, explain your set for me. So why is there a McDonald's All-American jersey in your set? And then my second question to you, you're based out of Chicago, right? How are things in Chicago? Because I know one thing that I don't take for granted anymore is 2020 has been such a chaotic year. And so I always like to kind of get a feel, temperature of the room, or what things are like in that location. I speak to Rob Parker in Los Angeles, and Rob's like, oh yeah, things are still shut down. You can't even eat outside. And I'm like, really? And I'm here in Florida, and you wouldn't even think there's a pandemic going on. So how are things near you? Talk about your set a little bit, and then we'll dive a little deeper into other stuff.
Okay, so first and foremost, the set. Like you mentioned, I do a lot of different things. So the light right here, I outside of basketball, House of Highlights, and podcasts, and I have a brand and a company where I manage artists, rap
Okay.
art. So it's called Ridge Vision, and that's basically the logo. It's the eye with the dollar sign. So
That's dope.
yeah, that. And a lot of this stuff to the left, it may be on the right, however you're looking at me.
Yeah.
From my company, House of Highlights, they put this here because, like I said, we do live shows because we have a contract with Twitter where, like every month or so, we have to do like a live show sponsored by Twitter and McDonald's. And they basically came in because it's the pandemic, like you mentioned, and they had to make a set so that when our live shows, it's not like I'm just in my basement. So a lot of this stuff they added. The McDonald's All-American jersey, that's from McDonald's, obviously. And then just other stuff. It's like from the company. The basketball is from McDonald's. Then you have the Michael Jordan secret stuff. I don't know if you can see it. This is me. I'm a Knicks fan, so they want it there. And then behind me is this big Chicago White Sox blanket type thing because I'm a big White Sox fan, as you mentioned, from Chicago. And then Chicago, as far as the pandemic, I would say Chicago has been in between Florida and LA. So for a very long time, a lot of things were shut down. But when the summer came, probably towards the middle of the summer, maybe even earlier than that, it kind of opened up a little bit. It opened up. But as of late, our cases had skyrocketed like a month or so. So a lot of stuff has went back into shutdown. But the interesting thing about Chicago is, a lot of our restaurants, which are located actually downtown Chicago, I live in a suburb, so I'm not really in the heat of it, but they're not into the rules. So it's some friction with the restaurant owners and, the governor, whatever, because they don't want to shut down because they don't want to close. We had a lot of restaurants close and hit from it. So I'm actually interested to see how that goes because I know a lot of them are still doing things they're not supposed to be doing. I've had friends out much, but I have friends tell me like they just drove around places and they still see people eating outside. This is like a couple months ago. Chicago is the windy city. We're getting cold, so nobody's eating outside.
Right.
But funny thing about Florida is my favorite place in the world is Miami South Beach.
Very beautiful.
Collins. That's one of my favorite places in the world to be. But the way that you guys handled the pandemic, love Florida. I don't know when the next time I'll be down there because I don't like Florida is going to be one of the last places to clear because, like I said, you would never know that it's a pandemic.
You wouldn't even know, Pierre. You wouldn't even know. I was on. So I'm finishing up college, right? My whole thing is why wait. So everything I'm doing, I'm still actually currently enrolled in college. I'm finishing up. I never really went full time to college, so it took me a little bit longer because everything I do outside of college has actually really helped my career more than anything. That's not to discredit college. I just wanted that piece of paper with my podcast covering the Magic, being on the radio, my deal with Rashad and being on TV. That's all through my podcast. That wasn't through college. So I'm finally finishing up. But I went down to Ocean Drive on spring break, and it's just absolutely ridiculous during spring break. I mean, it's just the streets are flooded. And that's when the pandemic was first kind of about to break through. So my last day there is when the beach is closed. And I'm like, beach is closed? No, like, oh yeah, you haven't heard. And that's when everything happened. But Pierre, when I tell you nothing has changed, nothing has changed. I mean, the beaches, if you go, I'm in Daytona Beach, the beaches are flooded. People are going to the movies. The outlets are crowded. You would never have thought that there was a pandemic here in Florida. I mean, if you watch the NFL, there's no people in the stands, and then you go to Jacksonville, and it's just crowded. People just don't really care here.
It's a little heartbreaking because we went in lockdown. Everybody went in lockdown, and everybody that was kind of responsible, kind of sat down for a while. I won't lie. There was moments in the summer where I went out and did things, but I did it responsibly, of course.
Right.
But one of the because of this, I remember being in the middle of it, being like, "Bro, when all of this is done, I'm going to Miami because I need that vibe." But after seeing how it's so crazy it's been, I'm like, man, I don't know when the next time I'll be able to go.
Yeah.
Like Miami Dolphins was one of the first teams that were like, we're gonna have fans come in. You know, we're gonna have come in. I remember watching when the pandemic first happened and nobody knew anything about it, and it was so scary. I remember, like, here. Yeah. People were just in the house because it was so scary. The streets were clear. But I remember, like, seeing videos surface on Twitter of people in Miami, and it was college kids like, yo, I'm not letting my spring break go away for...
Yep, getting interviewed.
Yeah, I remember that. And I was like, man, this is crazy. This is super crazy. What college do you go to?
Man, I just go to a state college here to save money. I don't go anything big or extravagant. I'm like, I just need this piece of paper. That's what I'm here for. I want that certificate. Everything else, I think I can do, not to sound conceited, but I work hard and I truly enjoy what I do. Back to what we talked about earlier in the show is the process of everything. And when I'm not trying to sound like Philadelphia here, when you really love the process and trust the process, it doesn't really seem like work for me. It's like, it's fun. I enjoy this. I love doing research. I love breaking down college prospects. So I didn't feel the need to go to a big university and get in a lot of debt. I'm like, let me just go here, save a lot of money. The things that I do outside for my career, I think I can do and benefit off of. But the reason why I brought up this whole pandemic thing too is because the NBA season is approaching, and I feel like with the new administration, with how certain places within the country have different rules and regulations, different ways of viewing things, it's going to be really interesting to see, because we're not going to have that one bubble in Orlando anymore. We're going to have separate places. So I think that could really pose an interesting problem for Adam Silver in the league. But before we get into all of that, Pierre, I know I'm bouncing around a little bit. I wanted to ask you this. So House of Highlights obviously has a terrific page, amazing content. I know you said you're into college basketball, and I know you have your pulse on today's society, today's trends. So for you, how big of an impact has social media had on basketball, and specifically the younger generation? Like, how important is it for these kids to grow a brand? Like, we knew about LaMelo way before we know about LaMelo as the number one pick. We knew him in high school in Chino Hills. So how big is it to have a brand in this era of social media?
Tough. I think it's like a double-edged sword. So, me and my dad have this conversation all the time because I have a little brother that's in the basketball world right now. Man, it's great because you can have the brand, right. But I also think, and this is something me and my dad say all the time, like, the game is a little bit watered down. And I think it's because of the possibility of having a brand. And I don't even think LaMelo is 1 in a billion, right, because he came from a family that knew what they were trying to do with the brand. There's a lot of kids who have these strong followings that's all they want is the following. They want the likes. They want the numbers. They want the views. They're not looking, I can have a brand. When, in reality, a lot of these kids can have a brand. A lot of these kids can do the things that LeVar and Lonzo and LaMelo and that whole family did if they wanted to, but I just think they're obsessed with the likes. So I think it's more because LaMelo is the only person I've really seen, like, LaMelo and Lonzo make the brand. I don't know how important it is unless you're going to do it like that. And let's be honest. Let's just put it. I'm just keep it real. Like, just for a second. Out of all the players that you've seen, because we're both young, so we were probably both in high school when Ball is Life was at its peak, right? Yep. How many of the most exposed Ball is Life or YouTube star sensation guys have panned out?
That's a great point. Very few.
Very few. A lot of them are in the NBA, but I could name so many guys that were so hyped up that didn't really last in the NBA, are role players, they're not stars. And the guys that Damian Lillard, I never saw Damian Lillard Ball his life. I've never seen a Jimmy Butler's Ball his life. You know what I mean? Giannis Antetokounmpo, we didn't see a Ball his life for him. There's so many guys, but then we can talk about like a Seven Woods. This is a guy who, like, in 7th grade.
Huge.
We're talking millions of views.
Millions. I remember I couldn't go anywhere from one class to the other. Seventh Woods, and everyone was watching his highlights on Ballers Life. That is a fantastic point.
So, and it's not, and I don't want to knock anybody. It's not the disrespect.
Right.
Thing. You know, I think that's the sad and unfortunate part is that it's not even his fault. All he did was go out there and hoop, and the social media people hyped it up. That's like Andrew Wiggins. A lot of people are hard on Andrew Wiggins. But I feel like the expectations of Andrew Wiggins were given by the internet and the media, not
the
him.
next LeBron. Like you're setting him up for failure.
He was never going to hit that. So now it's actually a solid, cool, like NBA player. He does have his flaws. There's definitely some room for development that I think he's missed. His game has kind of stayed the same. But overall, he's had a solid NBA career.
Yeah.
But he won't ever get accepted like that because, like you said, the next LeBron James. And that is where the internet hurts it more because, like we mentioned, the opportunity of having a brand is fantastic and it's beautiful. But how many kids really take that route or use it to their advantage for that reason? So it's more, you know, it's tough, man. It's tough because there are also some kids out there, like the young man James Preston, who, you know, was able to make his own highlight tape and send it to people. There's stories like that where the internet could help. But for the most part, those are like one in a few stories. We mostly see a lot of guys. I'll tell you, I'm a big fan of Austin Rivers.
As we played against him. My old high school played against him.
Right, because he went to Winter Park.
Yeah.
Perfect. I grew up off the Austin Rivers mixtapes. Those are some of the best all time.
Yes.
Austin Rivers now, he's not, you know, he's not a superstar in the NBA, never been an all-star, not even close. So it's like, it's just, you know, it's tough, man. It's tough.
That's a fantastic point. I ended up, Dwayne Bacon, I played against him at a Reebok showcase. He was huge on all that stuff. And like to your point, we're not discrediting any of these guys, but it goes to show you the power social media had on them early. Corey Sanders, I played against him. Corey Sanders was everywhere. And then it's like he was struggling to make the league. Not that he's not a good player, but to your point, social media couldn't get enough of him. And Antonio Blakeney, the Be Great, that was huge. And that's a fantastic point. So off that note, would you say you like the culture basketball is created now? Because obviously back in the day, you didn't have social media, you didn't have highlights. It was kind of word of mouth. You had big open gyms, big open runs that people would fly out and attend to. Now you have that social media trend, and it's almost like you find the talent early, you surround him with people that can make sure that he's good, and then you get him paid. College football, it's more of a, okay, you're going to go through college football, you're going to play 3 to 4 years, you're going to grind. You get to the NFL, and it's not a guaranteed contract. You got to work. And I feel like the NBA is more of a find it early and make sure we're able to get him to where he needs to be. Do you like the culture that basketball has now?
I can't say that I dislike it, but I definitely will say that I loved it when I was younger. And like in my mom's storage, she has like boxes and boxes of like magazines and stuff that I had. Like when Michael Beasley, Derrick Rose, I had to like have like, we used to go to like round ball classics.
Right.
Like I have stacks of McDonald American books because I used to go to those games. Now I don't really feel the need to because like by the time they're playing at McDonald's All American, I've already seen hours of footage of them because they're like people are breaking down Imani Bates and that kid has a couple more years left. You know what I'm saying? So it's like
since he's a freshman.
Yeah, Mikey Williams, like the kid just learned to drive and there's already like this super hype about him. He's not even done growing. We don't even know like if he's gonna be big enough, you know, like, but people are covering them. So like by the time they're even at the point, it's like you don't even really have to go see him. I remember being a kid, I used to like be obsessed with going to the McDonald's All American game or the Round Ball Classic, something they would do here in Chicago. It's like Michael Beasley, he's like that was just like a name. I didn't have all of this footage to see him, so I was a person. And then I also feel like some of these guys, like we just said, like some of these guys, they feel like they've already made it when they really haven't. And I think that's the worst thing you can do. Of course, it doesn't apply to everybody. We have some guys that are going to put the work in. But, you know, at the same time, saying all of that, I still like the fact that the kids can have a chance. I feel like a lot of kids have more of a chance because of social media. I also feel like, you know, it's setting up to where if they play it smart, if you don't make it or if you do fall flat, because of your social media following, you can get into some other things. You know what I mean? Like we're talking about, like if a high school phenom has 375,000 followers, even if he flops and doesn't make it or something goes wrong, he's not going to lose all of those followers. So he can flip that into whatever business he wants to go, whatever lane. You know, like a guy like Isaiah Briscoe, he owns a corner store or something now. I saw on his Instagram page. It's like, that's the type of shit that I want to see from guys if they're not going to be able to make it. And I also like the fact that they're turning it and they're using it to their advantage. A lot of these guys are making power moves and you know, forcing the league to change. We're seeing a G League route now. You know what I mean? That's part of the LeVar Ball, LaMelo, Lonzo train, where it's like, hey, LaMelo is going to go here. You know what I mean? LaMelo doesn't want to go to UCLA anymore. He's going to go here. Then he's going to go back to high school. Like, you control it. And I think he's going to be a guy that's at the forefront because he's in the league now, so his route worked. And hopefully a lot of other people can, you know, take advantage of it and take some notes. Even if you don't want to do it the LeVar way and be all on ESPN calling people out or being loud about it, I still think there's some important things that you can take from that situation. I don't know the answer of that question. I kind of like it, but like we talked about earlier, it's like a double-edged sword where depending on the person, it could be beneficial or harmful.
Right. It's very interesting you say that. I feel like we, in a weird way, I'm not saying we're LeVar and LaMelo by any means, but I feel like what we're doing now is also taking things into our own hands, creating our own platform and utilizing the resources we have. Because, like, to your point, we're not that big verified person where, okay, you may have X amount of followers, but what we are doing is creating our own platform, our own brand with the resources we have, which has created a really strong, loyal fan base and really influences a lot of other people. And I think the power of podcasting, the power of streaming has been able to do that, where you get real hoop conversations from people who may not have had that type of voice before. And that's really funny you brought up Isaiah Briscoe. I got to interview him before, and he was doing good. I covered the Magic, and I was like, man, he makes an impact defensively. He's a good playmaker. Sure, he doesn't have the best shot, may not be the best scorer at times, but I certainly thought he had a place in this league. So it's really cool to see him do well in another avenue and using that platform. But let's transition to your New York Knicks. So finally we get into the NBA. My family's from New York. I was born and raised here, but my dad's from Queens. My mom's from Long Island. So I lived there for 2 years. I always have some type of love for the Knicks in my heart, no matter how much dysfunction they may have. And we said this on the draft show, Pierre. There's no summer league. So I feel like the upperclassmen are going to do really well really early because they have a more refined game. So they're going to be really good at adapting. So all that being said, even though I don't think he will be the best player out of this draft, I think he has a really strong possibility, and I could see him winning Rookie of the Year, and that's your Obi Toppin. How do you feel about that pick? How do you feel about your Knicks? Do you like the direction? What are your thoughts on that?
I think you said it perfect. Will he be the best player out of this class long term, or when it's all said and done? I would go with the field, but because of everything you just said, I would have him as one of my front runners to potentially win Rookie of the Year as well. Considering the fact that where we drafted and where we were placed at 8, I love the pick. I think it was a very, very good pick. And, you know, I remember the night that our pick was revealed, and a lot of people on Twitter tried to clown the Knicks because any chance of there being a way to laugh at the Knicks, people are going to take advantage of it on social media. So I was like, hey, we were only projected to go 6. Which is 2 spots. We fell 2 spots, you know, below. And if you know anything about this class, after 3, it's fair game. You know what I mean? So 8, you know, obviously you want to be as high as you can, but after 3, it's, you know what I mean? It's like a whatever. So I felt at 8, whoever we got there, number 1 was going to be whoever fell to us. So it would be less room for us to mess up the pick because the Knicks have a history of messing things up. So like in that 4 range, like where the Bulls picked, we could have went somewhere and messed that up. But at 8, we just have to pick what's left. And I think Obi Toppin was perfect for us. I also think that Emmanuel Quickly at 25 is a very well because I like the way that he plays and just having a defensive-minded coach like Thibs. And I think he's going to be able to handle the New York atmosphere playing and coming out of Kentucky. I like the direction. We signed some guys that I think can play basketball really well. There's some veteran guys, short deals. Alec Burks, Austin Rivers, Nerlens Noel. Those are guys that I think are all solid. That the point guard situation is tough, because Alfred Payton is, you cover the Magic.
Yeah.
He's cool, but, there's better. And then
right.
the young guys like Frank Ntilikina, Dennis Smith Jr., who you want to see more from, and this might be their last opportunity to really showcase if they're, staying in this league or not.
Right.
Kevin Knox, Mitchell Robinson. Still got to figure out what we're doing with Julius Randle. That's going to be the biggest thing for us, I think, in the short future. But, I mean, as far as cleaning house, bringing in Leon Rose, World Wild West, Kenny Payne from Kentucky, Thibodeau, you know what I'm saying, him bringing in Coach Woodson, who was the last coach that we had when we saw real success. I love everything about that. And then the fact that we have all of this money that we really haven't used because we're doing the short deals, it just makes me happy. You know what I mean? All I want for us to do is not make we just overpaid this guy and now we need to stop doing that. We need to just build authentically through the draft brick by brick, because every year as a Knicks fan, it just seems like we tried to take the shortcut route and it never worked. So this time, from the direction I'm seeing, we're doing it one step at a time, which, not to go on a rampage or anything like that, but like every successful franchise that we've seen have success has came from like brick by brick. There's no shortcuts. And what I mean by that, like the Lakers, they were able to get Anthony Davis because they went through the years of being terrible in drafting. They drafted Brandon Ingram, they drafted Lonzo, Josh Hart, Kuzma, and then boom, you flip them for Anthony Davis. But you can't get Anthony Davis without pieces.
Right.
And that intrigued LeBron. It's already Hollywood, but LeBron saw the future and saw everything was lining up. Whether it wasn't going to be Anthony Davis, whoever it was, you have these young pieces. It's Hollywood, it's California, it's the Lakers. We can flip those guys. Even the Warriors, Steph Curry, Clay, Draymond, that's drafting. You look at the Brooklyn Nets, going and get D'Lo, getting Spencer Dinwiddie, drafting Karis LeVert, Jared Allen, making it look sexy, and then making it sexy enough to attract the Kyrie and Kevin Durant. That may be a shortcut route, but it became attractive based on your drafting and smart moves, and that's what the Knicks need to do.
I couldn't have said any better. And I know I reference football, and I know it's completely different sports, different models, but it's like Miami. I always use an example for Miami. So Brian Flores, you have Tua now. Everyone sees a promising young team. If you don't remember the season before, they were awful. But what we had a sense of optimism because we're like, oh, there's a culture being built. You could tell, even though that they're losing, they're playing hard. They're starting to build that foundation. So now when you start to get the pieces, you already have the foundation underway. So to your point, I think I really like the Knicks. They just need to build a consistent culture, like consistency. And then that's when the garden will start to take over. And that's when you'll get the stars to come and want to play once you build that culture, because no one trusts them yet. I'm not going to move my family and move my talents to somewhere that I don't trust. But once you build that trust, I feel like the Knicks could actually be a really good franchise for years to come. You mentioned Spencer Dinwiddie. I saw your post. Did you ever get the shoes by him?
No, man, I'm still waiting on my shoes. I wasn't, when I made the post, I wasn't expecting it because I know it's a lot going on reporting the training camp. They got a new coach, whole situation. So I actually should have did that weeks ago. But once I posted, I'm like, actually, there's a lot going on right now. Like taking COVID tests every day, reporting the training camp, meeting his coach, just a lot going on. So, and I believe all the teams are like reporting at hotels. He's not even home to send shoes or whatever. But yeah, that's my guy. Shout out to Spencer. But I agree with what you said. Yeah, the culture, I know it's a word that's being thrown around so much this past year or so because of the success of the Heat. But culture is a part. And I definitely see what the Dolphins are doing. That's a fact.
All right, I got two things left for you. So, Pierre, I really appreciate your time. So let me not hold you up too much longer here. Bradley Beal, we have Russell Westbrook, you have James Harden, you have John Wall. That trade happened. I've been critical of Russell Westbrook in the past. I never criticize a player because I hate or I'm not trying to bash anyone. It's just what I see. And I think he could be kind of difficult to play with, all gas, no breaks. That's why I did the rap comparisons to the NBA. And I'm like, he's Meek Mill. Just all gas, no breaks. But you know what you're getting with him. It's passion. It's what you're getting with Russ. And I think that complements Bradley Beal extremely well because you're getting consistency. We already just saw a report. I think it was today. He showed up 2 hours early. So I think the Wizards won this trade because you know what you get with Westbrook. And that doesn't mean John Wall's not a good player, but we haven't seen him play in, 2 years? So I think there's a lot of questions revolving around John Wall. We know when healthy how great he is, but availability is the best ability. So what did you take away from this trade between John Wall and Russell Westbrook?
I think it was, I don't want to say it was lose or win-win. I'm kind of like in the middle of it because of basically what you said. John Wall, first and foremost, we haven't seen him play in a couple years. But he is finally fully healthy. He was actually healthy like at the last year, but it was no reason to play him.
Right.
I think for what Houston wants to do and how they want to play, and how they should be trying to play, he's a better point guard for what they're trying to do. Because like you said, Russell Westbrook can be all brakes, no gas. I don't care if that's Kevin Durant, Paul George, or James Harden. I'm going to take a shot if I feel I need Russell Westbrook is a home run guy. Down 4, he's not going to get a layup. He's going to try to shoot a 3. He's
right.
that guy. He wants to knock it out the park every single time. John is an alpha male type of player guy, but he's that while being a distributor. He's a pass first guy who's trying to lead in that way. Which I think is easier to play with, and it's less conflict, especially when you're a guy like James Harden. I think, like you said, with the Wizards, you're going to have a guy who's going to be out there to go to war with Bradley Beal because he hasn't had that in a couple of years. And John Wall and Bradley Beal's off-court relationship has always been weird, and rumor-wise, we don't know the dynamic of that. Because we'll hear rumors, and then Bradley Beal will make a post like he made, which is weird. But on Bradley Beal has never been hurt by John Wall having the ball. Like, I know his best years have been now because he's been hurt, obviously. But even when they were playing together, he was still a spectacular player. So I don't think Russell Westbrook having the ball in his hand is going to hurt Bradley Beal in any way, shape, or form. That's why teams like Brooklyn were calling to try to get Bradley Beal, even though they have a Kyrie and Durant. That's why the Lakers were interested, even though they have LeBron and Anthony Davis, because Bradley Beal is a special, unique player who can play with the ball, without the ball. He's going to shoot, attack, free throw line, everything, 3-level score. So I like that dynamic, and I think you do it to make Bradley Beal happy. You show Bradley Beal, this is your team, whatever you want, whatever's going to make you comfortable, we're going to do that for you because this is your team now. We saw reports of John Wall kind of be thrown off guard when he found out they were building around Bradley Beal, which was a head-scratcher, but I think that also makes sense that they make that move to say, this is your team, Brad. And I think when you're Washington, you have to do everything in your power to keep Bradley Beal and allow him to be happy because he's kind of all you got.
Right. I couldn't agree more. That was really interesting the way you put it. An alpha male personality, but yet he's a pass first. So that will really benefit with James Harden. So my last question for you is this, Pierre. This is my favorite one, so I had to save the best for last. If you had to invest stock in one player, and typically you go younger player, who would it be? Now, for me, even though we know how talented they are, I would go Trae Young, or we could do two players, Trae Young and Ben Simmons. We all know how great they are, but the reason why I'm investing stock is because I feel, one, Trae Young, the Atlanta Hawks are going to take that next step this year, and Ben Simmons, I feel a lot of people are off. At first, it was originally high on Ben Simmons, and then it became off Ben Simmons. He can't shoot the three. He may be a high ego. So Ben Simmons, Trae Young, I would invest stock in. Who would be yours?
I love Ben Simmons. That's my guy. That's like my guy. So when you talk about stock, I want to buy a lot of stock in this guy. He's not nowhere near the guys you just named.
Okay.
I can buy even more stock in him. Darius Bazley from the Oklahoma City Thunder. I look at this guy, and one of my favorite players of all time is Lamar Odom. And when I watch this kid play, I just see, like, it's not all there yet because he's still a kid, very, very much so a kid. But I see pieces and flashes of it, and it's, like, so captivating. Like, it brought me in. I'm a Darius Bazley fanatic. Like, today is Monday. My Darius Bazley jersey might be arriving today. I ordered one. Like, I'm full on a train. I've been hyping this kid up since he came into the league. So I got my fan base with their eyes on him now. And I think because of all the moves they made, it's now opportunity for him to be able to grow and develop, which is the best way to develop is to play. I don't care anybody says being on that court is the best way to develop. And I feel like he's going to have that opportunity this year. And I love his game. We're talking about a 6'9" guy who's like a combo 4, but more traditionally a 4 in this league, maybe even a small ball 5. could put it on the floor enough to get himself to the rim in like 2 dribbles. He can make the open shot. I see he has a jab series. He can finish over you. He can block shots. You know, he runs the floor extremely hard. Pick and pop potential. Just everything. So I love that kid. So I'm buying a lot of stock. Trae Young is a good one, but I don't know how much stock you will be able to buy.
Yeah. Right.
So I'm gonna buy a lot of stock in Darius Bazley. Now my other guy, that's interesting because you picked 2, and I love your picks because you're right. Ben Simmons, man, I don't see the hate that Ben Simmons gets. I'm critical of him as well. Like as far as shooting, he does have to at least shoot it.
Right.
Overall basketball player, Ben Simmons is out of this world to me. Especially when you look at the success of Greek Freak. Like he can do everything that Greek Freak has done, and he has a natural vision. He's a much better playmaker. So
much better.
I understand the hate with him. But another player, I'm trying to go another unique route as a Darius Bazley one.
Good one. That's a really good one.
You know, I'll probably just go. It isn't as unique as Darius Bazley, but I'll go Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine, he's another guy that I've been high on for a while now, and every time he spazzes, like I'll go to my old tweets and I'll just like go retweet all of my Zach LaVine tweets from like 8 years ago when he was at UCLA. Big on him. I love Zach LaVine. I think he's the real deal. I think he's just been in some sticky situations. You know, the Timberwolves was tough. Now the Bulls is tough. And they have a nice young core. They just can't stay healthy. And their coach last year, Jim Boylan, wasn't the best. But I mean, I look at that dude and I see a killer. Like he's not away from Devin Booker. You know what I mean? I love Devin Booker. He's one of my favorites. Devin Booker is the better player right now, but I don't think Zach LaVine is that far away. 3-level scorer. You probably want to see a little bit more effort on defense, but my argument for that is it's hard to wake up and play defense every day on a losing team like that. I think guys that we criticize defensively, we have to wait till we see them in real moments because as a basketball player, even though I've never played in the NBA, even when I'm at the gym, if my team is down 13-2, I'm not locking up. So if I can't expect him to lock up down 17 in the fourth quarter. Like people analyze that a little bit too much for me. But Zach LaVine and Darius Bazley, and I'm trying to make sure I don't forget anybody. You know, my cousin does play for the Suns, Javon Carter. I would have bought some of his stock, but I think that would be a little too biased. Zach LaVine and Darius Bazley is good. That's perfect.
All right, Darius Bazley and Zach LaVine, you're buying stock. I'm going to buy stock, maybe not as much stock, Trae Young and Ben Simmons. But to your point with Zach LaVine, I had a chance to interview him. And Pierre, some people just have the gift, and his athleticism is just out of this world. So there's some things that he can do that just other people, no matter how many hours you put in the gym, you're not going to be able to do. And that athleticism unlocks so many parts of his game. And then you add the shooting, you add he's just, to your point, just extremely dynamic. And I think in the right scenario, we're talking about him a lot more than we are now.
I was, as a Zach LaVine fan, and I'm also not a Bulls fan, I was praying that the Mavericks, because I felt like him with Porzingis and Luka would have been nice. Finally could play in the playoffs. I'm just happy, as a Zach LaVine fan, I'm just happy that he's not the dunker anymore. For a long time, he was like a 20-point scorer, the third option in Minnesota, and everybody just referred him as a dunker. I'm like, y'all see that this dude is like playing behind Cat and Wiggins and still giving you 20 a game?
Star.
Star. Legitimate star. I remember there was a rumor of him potentially, you know, the Knicks had their eyes on him. It was like the Knicks Brooklyn like the past year. Where I'm like, bro, if we can get that to happen, I take it. Another guy, since you named the Hawks, Cam Reddish. I just don't know.
Cam Reddish.
I don't know where he. Not to make this any longer because I know you're trying to wrap up.
No, it's all good.
Where does Cam Reddish fit with the Hawks?
He fits right where he needs to. I'm telling you right now, Pierre. So Rashad and I have been so high on Cam Reddish. So I'm so glad you brought that up. I would buy a lot of stock in Cam Reddish because Cam Reddish, for one, I think Rashad's always said like in year 4, he's going to pop. So I think we live in a fast food society where we're like, oh, we need him right now to be successful. And it's like, to your point, you got to let him play. That's the best way you're going to develop a player. So I think once Cam Reddish finds he has an NBA stride, he has an NBA jump shot, he plays really good defense, and you see flashes of greatness in him We're just waiting to see it on a consistent level. So I think if we can see him incorporated a little bit more in the Hawks' offense this season, which is going to be a little bit harder because of the pieces they just got. So that's interesting. But if we could see that pop, the Atlanta Hawks' future is ridiculous. So I just give him a little bit more time there, and let's see how that plays out. But that's a really good one that you picked out. I love Cam.
I would have took Cam over RJ.
I would have too.
I'm that high on Cam. I think he's going to be one of the best players if he gets his opportunity out of that class. That's why I say that. I agree with you. I don't want to rush his process at all. But like my point with Darius Bazley, you have to be on the court to develop.
Yeah.
And with all the moves they made, it's hard for me to see where he can consistently get that opportunity. You know what I mean? I know we're in a COVID year, but I don't want to wish COVID on any of the players for him to get minutes. But when you look at like Trey, they just signed Bogdan. DeAndre Hunter was their 4th overall pick, so he's probably a little prioritized more. John Collins, Capella, Okongwu. It's like, who?
Gallinari.
Yeah, right, Gallinari. So it's like, where does he? And even if he's getting the minutes here and there, who was he getting shots at? But like, he's not going to be prioritized. Because I look at the kid, and I see Paul George 2.0 personally.
Ooh.
Personally, when you talk about the 3-point shooting, he can get his own shot, but I don't know how soon he'll be able to have that luxury in somebody's offense. So for his first few years, he's going to have to play off Trae Young. And if he does get traded or something like that, wherever he would go, he would probably play off somebody. I'm just being realistic here. So until he has that ability to be the man, he can shoot the ball and play off people, extremely athletic, and defensively. That's where I love him at. I mean, he can guard anybody. And I love the fact that he had his little struggles in the first half of his career because it made him double down on defense to earn his minutes. So now he can see, shit, I can lock up. And I think it's important for players to get that confidence defensively early instead of the other way around, because then they get super good offensively and they don't care about defense. But he's going to be reversed. I'm as high on him as you guys are, but I just realistically, it's hard for me to picture him getting the proper amount of opportunity with all the moves they made. That's all.
Maybe he should just go to the Knicks, huh, Pierre?
Hey, if he can come to the Knicks, we'll take him. But I look at a team like the Timberwolves, and if they had a Reddish right now, wow, is all I would say. All 30 teams. It's not a team that can't use a Cam Reddish right now. The kid is the real deal, man. Seriously.
Well put, Pierre. I am so very happy to have you on finally. Now I already know you're going to have to come back on in sometime in the future. But before I let you go, where can people find you? Instagram, Twitter, all your platforms, all your shows. The floor is yours.
No, well, first and foremost, I appreciate you having me. Real pleasure. We had some great conversations. You can find me on Twitter at Pee Wee the Plug, and then on Instagram, I'm Pee Wee the Plug HOH, and then YouTube, I'm Big Stacks Porzingis. My Nick fandom, shout out to Kristen, where I talk about a lot of stuff just on my one-on-one style because, I share the podcast with 3 other people. But other than that, you can just find me around, man. I'm always having a basketball conversation with guys like Max or Combos Court or whoever. I'm just a basketball guy, so I don't care who it is to have started a podcast and they've been like, "Yo, Pete, would you come on?" And they have 3 followers, but I just like to talk about the game. So it's like, sure, I'll come. You know what I mean? You show me love, I'll show you love. You know what I'm saying? So I appreciate it, man. I had a hell of a time. Definitely can't wait to do it again. And the people that we picked is going to be nice now because now every time Trae Young, because he's going to have every time he has a big game, I'm going to have to like tweet you like, "Hey, yo, stock, you got some good stock there." Every time Ben Simmons has a triple-double, I have to tweet you. But no, I appreciate it, Max, for sure.
Well, here you go. So I may not get filthy rich off of my stock, but you're going to become Bill Gates with your stock because you put a lot of stock in those players. So for sure. Pierre, next time, if I ever come up to Chicago, I know my guy Zach Ramey stays there as well. Kate stays there. Got to hit you up sometime. I know it's really cold there and the COVID, so it may not be anytime soon, but when the time comes, I'll let you know. I appreciate your time. Thank you as always. You be safe, and we'll talk soon.
You too, bro. Appreciate it.